now we're getting into more some development models and best practices for building your MOOC, and we'll start talking a little bit about some of the edX tools that are available for doing it. So we don't need to talk about this. Again, we've got the green triangle. If you want to go back and look at things that I don't talk about, as I say, I'll provide the slides to everybody. Every edX course begins and ends with a course team. That it includes both the, this specific course team. So a faculty member serves as the instructor for the course. And you see the responsibilities there. So they're the voice of the course. They're the person who's actually teaching the video lectures, who gets recorded and gets on there. But they are also important as the chief quality officer for the course. Then these other roles, I don't know, on one level, they're kind of optional. I mean, and different people can fill multiple roles. Like your faculty member might be doing some of this other stuff. But there's also a course coordinator or a course course manager. This is typically a postdoc student on a university kind of student or a teaching assistant, and so they serve as kind of the logistical coordinator of the course. So they make sure everything gets done. They keep everybody on the course team talking to one another. They work with, if you're working with IEEE or directly with edX or whatever, they work on release schedules and doing quality assurance, that sort of thing. And they may also be part of the actual courseware development. So they may be doing some of the teaching or creating some of the materials that go on there. Then you have other teaching assistants and other staff who are helping to actually build the course in the platform. A faculty member can do this too. I encourage people to know as much about the platform as possible because it really brings the ideas for how to use it better. But they're building the course in the thing. They're kind of the nuts and bolts of taking the course from drawing board to putting it online. And then the students themselves can be an important part of the course team in a couple of different ways. Every course before it is launched should go through a beta test phase. And that may be, you may work with students on your team. For any IEEE published MOOC, we have a set of volunteers who do beta testing on courses. And this is really, at this point, it's not so much judging the content of the course. Is it correct? Because you should have done that already. This is, do all the links work? Are the quizzes set up right? Is the student experience flowing the way it ought to, or stuff confusing, that sort of thing. So you can use your students for that. And then the other thing it mentions is a community teaching assistant. This is very helpful sometimes on the larger courses. Like if you've got a course that has 50,000 students in it, you'll find early on in the course, you'll start seeing some of the same names pop up in the student discussions. Folks who are answering other students' questions, who are just generally helpful. You actually have the ability, with their permission, to promote them to a discussion moderator, who can have a certain role in helping decide whether, in any online forum, you may get inappropriate questions, you may get, or they may be filed in the wrong space, and you can give just one of the other students a role to be able to facilitate that, to moderate discussions, to delete discussions, to move them in the right place, that sort of thing. Obviously, you can't do that on day one, but after a week or 2 weeks, you're going to see the same students all the time who are really helpful. And those are also usually the people that they're going to be complimented if you reach out to them and say, hey, would you like to be a moderator? Any questions about these roles on the course team? Everything pretty straightforward? All right, so let's talk development tools. And this is more, different resources for actually building your course. Again, you're going to get these slides, but there's a huge amount of resources that edX makes available, as you might expect for this. And there are some very, I mean, you can get down nitty-gritty, you know, on how on each piece, but these are kind of the three primaries that really help you both in thinking about what needs to go in the course, but also how to do it. edX publishes a template for a course development plan, and that'll show you the highlights, you know, where you should be on the development stage as you go through, and it really can help you do some project management along the way. There's a development checklist that really helps you to make sure that all the key elements that really should be part of every course have been accounted for and planned for. But also, you know, it shows both, these are the crucial ones, these are the ones you have to have, and these are kind of the nice to haves, and that's a valuable tool. And then just the about page template. This is really what's used for the course announcement. This is what students will see when deciding whether or not they want to enroll in your course. There are key elements in there that actually help in your thinking about how you're going to develop the course. So even though at first you may not even know exactly what your course is going to be about, you go first to the about template, because it asks you the questions that your students are going to be asking about the course before they decide whether they want to take it. And some of them are pretty basic. Is, what are you going to learn when you take it? Why this course instead of somebody else's course? Why you as an instructor as opposed to other instructors in this same material? So that has a very real practical thing, because in the end it's what decides whether your students take your course or not. But in thinking and planning about how to build your course, it's a valuable tool. The link is here, and again, I'll be sharing all links as well with you guys, but they're all in the slides. edX just likes to mention some other project management tools that help when you're working with a course team who are not all in the same office necessarily. Who sometimes in IEEE we sometimes have course teams who are on different continents. And so keeping everybody working in an organized fashion and going forward require tools that can be shared online. These are just three that they happen to advocate using. Google Drive, I use Google Drive all the time. It's where you're going to find these slides at the end at the end of this. I'll share a Google Drive with you. There's a way of being able to share and collaborate on documents as well. I'm less familiar with Asana or Smartsheet, but it really doesn't matter what you use as long as you find something that works for your course team, that lets everybody share kind of in real time. Trying to manage this sort of thing through email can become a nightmare, you know, because find the right version, that you know, all that kind of thing. And I'm sure the university has some resources for project management as well. And you know, there's no need to reinvent the wheel if what you have here works for you and works for your course team. But it's part of your planning project is to think about what are the tools you're going to use to help keep everybody organized, and a place for materials to be submitted so that everybody can see. If you've got, you know, maybe you have a document that everybody's working on at the same time, something that people can access in real time and work on in real time. Some of the common pitfalls that we fall into as when we're developing some of these online courses. And I like this one because I do it all the time, the hero mentality. Don't do this by yourself, right? Not only because it would be a lot of work to do by yourself, but just as your course is enhanced by the diversity of its audience, your course is enhanced by the diversity of the team who puts it together, right? You have your way of doing things, and I'm sure it's a good way, but it's not the only way. And bringing other people to the table to help in developing courses, they think about things differently than you do. They think about their learning experience as a learner is probably different than yours. Their teaching experience as a teacher is different than yours. And you're reaching in a MOOC the most diverse audience you will ever reach with your instruction. your approach to that has to be diverse, and it can't be diverse if it's only one voice. Planning ahead. We're gonna hit on this over and over again. Actually creating your materials is easy. Planning for what those are going to be, that's hard, because again, it's a change in mindset for how things go on. So put the time in planning and expect everything is going to take at least twice as long as you think it's going to take. And because at some point you're going to announce a release date for your course. Don't miss your release date for the course. So give yourself enough time. And that time includes review stages. Don't finish the course the day before your students are coming in to take it. You want people to be able to your beta team, your other colleagues, to be able to look at it and help you revise it during the development so you can keep going. But it's also, in an online course, well, I mean, your own courses, the on-campus courses, you do them this semester, and next semester you do them again. I hope you're not doing them exactly the same way next time. There are obviously going to be similarities, but you learn every time you do a course, right? Same thing online. You're going to learn every time your course runs. Now, most of your work, Anand Agarwal, who's the CEO of edX, and he's an MIT professor in circuits. And an IEEE senior member. I have to throw that plug in. He told me that doing a course the second time is not 10 times easier, it's 100 times easier than the first time you do it. But it doesn't mean that there isn't more work to be done, ways of adapting it and moving forward. So that leads into our next discussion, which is, so you've heard me talk a little bit about this so far. What's the challenge that you're seeing in designing or creating your online course? And then the converse of that, what's the opportunity you're looking to take advantage of? We've talked about some of this, but let's talk challenge first. Most of you haven't done an online course before. What scares you?
I've got something that worries me already.
Yes.
Sometimes in the class, in the interaction, you say something controversial.
Yes.
In the class, it doesn't really matter too much because they're experiencing you all along. You can see your body language, everything is there, all right? Now you do this online. The university, being what it is, has very strict rules, what you can say, what you can't say, and it could just be that I say something inadvertently which the university doesn't like.
And there's proof of it.
I suppose you need, and there's proof now. And the thing is, the 100 students in the class will not cause an issue over it, but then there are outsiders, you know?
Yeah.
And that
a
could
student
be...
may call you on it then and there. Say, hey, professor.
No, but that has never happened, although, you know, to give an example, I dislike unions. And I say, who here is part of a union? And the hands come, you know. I said, disgusting, unions are dead since 1950. Then I get things going in that class in terms of conversation, all right? It's just controversial. Now somebody can take that out of context. Say, what is it with the university? And suddenly Kusato or whoever is having an issue with the University of Joburg because of something I said in class. So that is what I see as a challenge while we were talking just now. Long story, I should make it shorter.
Yeah.
What do you say to something like that? Or anything else?
I say that there are, you're right, I mean, it's potentially a problem, but there are ways of mitigating. One of which is just in how you present it. Like you might say,
Yeah, sure.
You can, even in the beginning of the course, you know, there's a welcome to the course. You can say right there, I'm going to challenge some of your preconceived notions. Just because I say a thing in this provocative way, I may or may not personally agree with it. I'm going to be challenging you to get the discussion going. But you can do that in the individual lecture as well. You know,
So it's almost like a disclaimer.
yeah. But that said, also remember when you're in the classroom, you haven't done that lecture in front of anybody else until you do it. you're building in your time for beta testing and beta review, and you want to look at,
Okay.
you know, somebody else is going to see it and say, whoa, 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 whoa,
Can't do
whoa.
that.
That's, you know, and I wouldn't treat that as censorship or anything like that. But if you hadn't thought
No, sure.
that this might set somebody off, I wouldn't want you to censor yourself in your teaching, but use it as an opportunity to look at it and think again, all right, how are other people going to see it, and what do I do about that? Not don't do it, but how do I adjust to that so that I can make that more accessible to students who might turn off just hearing it.
Yeah, that's good point.
Sorry.
The thing that, I mean, that's a global social media problem.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically if it's politically orientated. But that's the reason why we mostly use a discussion tool under the university blanket of Blackboard. Because if they go on in Blackboard and whatever happens in there, it's still an internal debate going on.
What happens in
And you
Blackboard
can
stays in
get-
Blackboard, right?
Now when you've got your priors that's actually looking for some mistakes, what I found people do in social media is they get a disclaimer, but they open a private blog. And it says in that blog, if you participate in here, you are going by my discussion and my rules. So they're like undersigned going into a private blog from the MOOC itself. So it was their choice if they wanted to participate. It's the easiest way we found to keep it safe.
And I would say in this setting, you're really talking about the same thing. Make it clear that, you know, this is not going to be a bland, non-controversial kind of discussion. I want controversy, right? I want to challenge you so that you think about it in different ways.
But later on, even if they're practitioners in a job somewhere, they still collaborate in an online environment. And that's your typical community of practice idea eventually. So that's always the opportunities I see in these things.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Either challenge or opportunity? Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're moving okay now. We're moving okay. We haven't yet. So now we're going to get into the heart of the edX platform itself, or I even should say platforms, because there are a couple of them. So we're gonna look overall at it and start playing a little bit with doing stuff. I think in this one we have some actual exercises where you're beginning. So we say so far I know you actually, most of you have not done this stuff, so we'll handle that on the fly. So there are two key elements to the edX platform: edX Studio and edX itself, what they just call edX, which is the learning management system. Studio is where you build the courses, and the learning management system is where the courses are published and where students actually access the courses. The edX learning management system you're going to see is fairly different than Blackboard, which you may be familiar with. It is designed to really reach many students at once. And so that there are both enhancements and limitations of the platform as part of that. So it's going to be a little bit different than what you've seen before. Just briefly, edX also publishes a website they call Edge. That's really for the places where, you know, if you're publishing a course just for your own students, the small private online courses, or other places where you might just want to play around with the platform or whatever. I have a sandbox course on there that I use just to kind of try out things and mess around with stuff. edX.org itself is where the MOOCs are hosted and run. It's the same software. In fact, you can build on Edge and move it over to the other side. But unfortunately, they also need two different logins. So if you created the account on Studio on Edge, it won't work on edX, on their studio. You have to do a separate one. But I don't know why they do that, but and actually I'm going to skip over that. We're going to come here. So the basic structure of your course, let's come here. So the outline and structure. Because this can get a little bit confusing when you're in Studio. So we're looking at it here within edX Studio, the course outline. And it's just a question of terminology. Courses are divided up first into sections, then within those subsections, and both of those areas have no actual content. Think of those more as headings than anything else, the section and the subsection. It's at the unit level where you're actually producing content. And the unit can have as many components as you want that can either be organized as, like you can have one big component that you scroll down forever, and that component can include video and assessment and text reading and HTML and the like. Or you can organize it into, if you remember that tab, that gray tab we saw at the top of the screen earlier, each of those pieces is a component within a unit. So you can go to, like, have an HTML introduction to the topic that then goes to the first video lecture, that then goes to maybe a knowledge check question, that then goes to the second video lecture, and on and on. And that forms a unit that goes across the screen that way. What we don't have is, you haven't created a course yet. You should be able to just in the tab, in fact, I'll go over and look at it. If everybody could go to studio.edX.org, and I'm going to show it here as well. I have it here if I'm still in. I hope and expect that everybody will have this new course tab or button. Oh, you're not able to get online? Okay. You can probably come play up here if you don't mind everybody looking at what you're doing. Is everybody else able to get in?
We don't have a tab.
Oh, you want the, let me go back to the...
No, the new course icon.
Oh, you don't see the new course icon?
No.
Yeah, so I think you do have to have special permission. For those of you who signed up before this morning, you will already be able to see in your studio home this University of Johannesburg MOOC workshop, and you can go in there and do it. Who signed up only today?
But there's a confirmation email
Yeah, but
just that was come through. So
Oh, so you haven't gotten the confirmation email yet.
I think it's there. We must just check that.
Okay.
I got the email that the request is pending.
Yeah, same with me. I also got the email, but it's pending.
And you
So you only got on the internet.
So I did that 2 days ago.
maybe they have to clear it.
Yeah, but I don't have a number.
We don't have a number yet.
Course created request status is pending.
So if I have the UJ workshop,
Yeah, so you
must I
see
click
it.
on it? Must I click on
Yes, if you
this?
click on it, then you can, in fact, well, why don't we, for those of you who don't have access to it, we're going to be joined this afternoon, actually, over Google Chat, I hope, by some of the folks at edX in Cambridge. So they can facilitate what was originally scheduled as the lab component, so they'll help us with it at the time. But maybe for these purposes, I can just kind of do it, and you can watch if you don't have access. If you do have access, I encourage you to do it yourself. We don't, because we haven't. You'll only see this in the middle here if you don't have any sections in your course, but you will see this new section piece. I'm going to create a section for demonstration purposes. Those of you who do have access to it, go ahead and create a section yourself and follow along. And I'm just going to bring back up the exercise just to remind everybody what we're doing. So we're going to go into Studio. We're going to open the course. We're going to create a new section. Name it whatever you want, because if there are multiples of us going in the same thing. In fact, why don't you name it, if you've got an idea already for what you're going to build a unit on tomorrow, go ahead and give it that title now. okay? And then just create a subsection in there and create a unit itself. All of that, remember, well, we'll go through it. You can follow along while I do it. So we're creating a section, we're creating a subsection, and we're creating a unit. So let me go back over here. And it's pretty straightforward. If you're, you just saw me create a section, and I'm going to go ahead and name it Steve's course section. And boom. And we'll talk later about what scheduled means and release dates and things like that. In creating a section, it automatically creates one subsection, but I'll show you how to do other ones. Again, you hit the little, that's supposed to be a pencil icon, so you can change the name. And I'm just going to say Steve's first section. I really can't read this down there, it's too low. And hit enter to, and you see that there's a button right there for creating other subsections. It's pretty straightforward. Boom. Create that. Steve's second section. And then within the section, once you have a section highlighted, wherever you see there's a new unit button there. If I were to go back up here, again we'd see new unit here, and then creating a new unit is just clicking on that button. And it's slowing down. Yes, sir?
Sorry, Steve, I'm seeing those sections also appear in the island.
Yes, that's why you need to create your own section and be working in that, because we are all on the same course.
Okay.
Yeah, so which is a good point. As you're developing courses with a course team, you're going to have to make sure that everybody knows, like, if I'm working on this piece, you're not working on this piece, because only the most recent thing is going to be saved, and it can cancel out. There are no protections against that. So here on the unit, I'm just going to create Steve's unit, and that's all we're asking you to do right now. We're not creating any components, but you can see what the buttons are for the broad types of components that there are: discussion, HTML, problem, video. But within this unit, every time we add a new component, that's what's going to be in that menu that goes across the top of the screen while the students are in it. Make sense? For those of you with access, have you been able to do it? Anybody having challenges, problems? Yes, sir. Come look. Oh, so you're actually not in the studio. This is just documentation. Yeah. So. Okay. So your course career. Okay. So what's pending? Okay. I'm sorry. Looking over your shoulder. What's pending on the folks who are pending is just the ability to create new courses. I can add you to that course that I have created. I just need, if you could, at some point. Let's pass it. Those of you who just signed up today, let's pass around a sheet, and if you give me all your email addresses, I can add you as course staff on the course that I've developed, and then you'll have access to it. Could you, since you have a pad and everything, could you start a new sheet with your email address? Please print as legibly as you can, because I'm notoriously bad at reading handwriting. And then just anybody who has just created an account today, let me have your email address, and I'll be able to add you as contributors to this course that we built. I forgot that if you're going to create a course, that's something that has to be approved by the staff at edX. I have been approved, so I can add you to my courses as a creator. Okay. So we'll do that before we get to the next exercise. I'll get everybody in, or maybe we'll take a little break or something. Yes, sir. Oh, just in turn. Okay. Okay. So we go back to the presentation. So that's your first look at Studio. You can see on at least a cursory level, if you've done WYSIWYG web building tools before, it's not markedly different from stuff you've seen. Is that fair to say? Fairly straightforward so far?
I'm not signed up yet. It's still
Oh, okay.
hanging here.
All right, but all right. So let's talk about basic content management within the course. You saw when we created a section, when we created a unit, one of the things that it showed right away is that it's looking for a release date, and we talked about this before in terms of the release date is when students can actually access the content, and there are a couple of different places it has to go in. There's a course start date. That's the date that any content at all will be available to students. And then there are release dates for both the section and the subsection. And of course you have to actually put content in it and publish it. Until all of those steps are done, students don't see the content. Okay? Or at least until all the release dates have passed. So you do have to specify those dates for everything that's part of what you're doing. So just talking briefly, so that the course start date, again, is the day the course is open for student access, and that happens kind of at the top level of the course. And you see where section release dates and subsection release dates come in, because you can, depending on how you structure the course, you may want to ensure that students have looked at this before they see that. So even within a section, you can have various release dates, so that Monday they can see this, Tuesday they can see that, Wednesday they can see that. That starts to get complicated and gets into issues of control over the students, but there is some utility for that kind of functionality. We said you have to actually publish the content when you do it, and that's something that doesn't happen by mistake. You have to actually push the publish button, because you can go in, even while students are taking the course, you may be adding new sections, you may be changing content, like you have a video that's up now and you realize there's an error in it, you want to replace that video. You replace the video, you have to then push the publish button for students to be able to see it. Otherwise, you can look at it internally, test it out, make sure it's working the way you want it to work, but students won't see it until you hit the publish button. And that's typically a good thing, because you want to be able to make sure that it's really ready for students to see. But if you forget it, then your students are left hung out without the actual content to see. You don't have to publish on a section by section basis. Within a particular part of the course, if you've made multiple changes, at the top level you can push to publish it all at one time if you're ready. Okay. There are a couple of different ways to look at the content. There's to preview the changes you've made versus what's actually live in the catalog. And there's also a staff view versus the student view. URLs don't much matter. But there are buttons within Studio. You see that there are buttons to see, to look at the live version and to look at what the changes you just made will look like. In terms of staff view and student view, the biggest difference between what course staff see and what students say, if you're staff on a course, there's an extra tab at the top for instructor. And there are all kinds of nifty tools and stuff that you can get as an instructor that you don't necessarily want students to do, but that's a big difference. If you're staff and you look, and you'll see the instructor view, you'll be able to access it. But you can also, if you want to make sure, you will also see all content whether it's been released or not. Okay? So sometimes it's helpful to go in and look at courses the way students will look at it. And you can do that just within edX by choosing the little pull-down view will let you choose to look at it as a student. All right, so we have another exercise here. So what I'll do, while those of you who have access to Studio do this, I'll be adding the other folks to the existing course so that they can start doing it, but they may not get to do this particular one. This is pretty straightforward though. So what I'm asking you to do is go back to the unit you just created, and set release dates for the things that you created. And then take a look at it, you know, play with the view live mode, play with the preview mode, and then once you're looking at the live content, look at student view versus staff view. Meantime, if we have the sheet that has everybody's email address, yes sir.
May we log in on our own laptops because it's working on.
I'm not sure how internet access works in the room.
It's Wi-Fi.
Is it except if but yes, if you have access to internet.
It's going to work much better than
Yeah, use your laptop.
So what's the password?
I'm sorry.
Have you problems?
So much. I'm fine.
And I think at this point, I think we know each other well enough. I can take off my jacket.
We know you're professional.
It doesn't want to come again.
And can I get the where's the list of email addresses?
Signing.
Went this way.
I'm still busy, so.
Oh, he's still filling that. Which is actually, here's a bonus. You get to see how you add course team to a course. Thank you. Oh, but I will need my glasses. Oh, you need to add to it? Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so I just need to mention all that.
Last year, I can log in on
So,
So Steve, what you actually did was to give us permission under you in that Steve's course.
correct.
All right.
Correct.
Now
So
I
you can
understand.
add it there. I think it's called University of Johannesburg.
But then you create the stop. We can only enter under the second section. Then you can add it.
Oh, no, you should be able to add your own sections. Maybe I need to, I didn't set everybody with administrative access. I will go ahead and do that.
All right.
I'll show you as we're doing. So,
All right.
so here I am, I'm looking at the course in edX Studio.
Right.
I go under the settings menu and I choose course team. And it's thinking about it.
Because it wasn't saving.
And has anybody whom I've just added? JS Powert has not activated their account. So there's an email address you received that with a link.
I haven't received it, that's the whole issue.
Oh, is it so? Maybe have you looked in your your spam folder?
Yes. It says it sent the message, but I've even got my computer open and it hasn't arrived, and the previous one took forever.
Okay. Sorry.
So he's trying to help me with
Oh, am I spelling this wrong? That, oh, it's probably AU, not AB, Mueller?
Yep.
AU, not AB?
It's A Vermeulen at UJ.
I'm sorry, say again?
A Vermeulen.
Oh,
A-V-E-R-M-E-U-L-E-N.
oh, N, I think I have an R. There you go. Oh, you're already a course team.
Oh. But it doesn't want to show you.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's this one?
Look, I already signed up. There's my email.
I don't know why.
There's my password. Oh, but it doesn't want to accept it.
Oh, is it so?
Yeah. So I'm trying to change this one. Even on my own laptop,
It says you're already a course team.
correct. Doesn't want to accept this combination.
Yeah, you know, it's still, you know, it's still, I find sometimes odd little glitches with the edX software, and that's why we also have a representative at edX. I actually shot you
I do understand.
Let's try and see.
and you just saw one aspect of enrollment, because I was enrolling you guys as course team members, but let's talk a little bit about how you do enrollment within a course as well. This is more, but this is not for the whole world of enrollments. This is more if you want to add your own students or other people directly to a course, you can do that within the platform. In edX Studio, under the Settings tab, there's well, Schedule and Details, and then there's a button for inviting your students. And within there, it'll push out. We'll just go and look at it actually. If I can remember how to do it. The way I work with all these things is and a lot of times having been, and I know you're not going to remember everything I say here, but hopefully at least will stick in mind when you have to do a thing. Oh, Steve said something about that, and should be, as you get more familiar with the platform, able to figure things out a little bit. We go under. I am gonna have to remind myself because I haven't done much actual course. So it says, yeah, Settings, Schedule, and Details. That's what it is. So sometimes you got to go in and find stuff. Schedule and Details. And you see, I mean, we haven't filled out most of this, but there's, you know, course overview, an image for the course, introduction, and that sort of thing. And oh yeah, and the big blue friendly button for invite your students. Oh, okay. So this is set up actually to use an email program to do it. But what'll happen here? It will build and I'm not going to go through it. It'll build an email that includes. It'll build an email that pulls from this data sheet information about the course. So it's an invitation. You're not adding them to the course. Like when I added you as course team, you had access directly. This would just be an invitation for them to register for the course. Okay, and it pulls from this to include all the elements here, and it uses yeah the email engine there. Go back. Back into the invitation. Yeah, so this is the invitation we're talking about, and this is a way to you know, they still have to go through the steps to register for the course, but it also means that they don't have to have an edX account to receive that email, that invitation. If they do have an edX account, there are other tools for you actually to auto-enrolling them into the course, which you want to use carefully. You know, I don't know how you feel, but if somebody just started enrolling me in courses, but you might, you know, if you're doing it with your students, you say, part of this course is this online stuff, you're going to be enrolled in it, then you deal with it. That includes the ability, as I said, to do batch enrollment. You can just paste in 30 email addresses or more, whatever, to add them to courses. And you see the options there. You can enroll them in the course, but make them confirm that they actually want to be in the course. That's the difference between the checkbox that says auto-enroll or not. You know, if they're auto-enrolled, they don't have to do anything else to be enrolled in the course. If they're not, then they do have to follow another step. And of course, the edX system will send out an email to everybody you enroll, unless you uncheck the device. I would say typically you want to let them know by email that they've been enrolled, but that's up to you. And then within the course, and what we're looking at here is a screenshot within the course LMS. You see the membership tab is highlighted. You can also see a list by what kind of role students have. This is the course staff that it's showing here in the screenshot. but you can look at beta testers, that sort of thing. Oops, too far. A little bit more about course team roles, because we ran into a problem this morning because I hadn't set the course team correctly for you to be able to create new units. So in Studio, your admin role, it serves as the full instructor of the course. Now, this person can do anything in the course at all, including adding and removing other course staff, and modifying grades, that sort of thing, and full privileges to author anything in the course whatsoever, including release dates. You can also have, some of you, so the default role is just staff, which some of you I added today, earlier. That's what you had to begin with. You can see all the content in the course. You can edit anything that someone else has created, but you can't create new sections, and you can't, you can modify the grades for individual students, but you can't change the grading structure for the course itself. And then other roles we talked about, you can have administrators for the discussion forums, you can have moderators for that, the community teaching assistants we talked about, and beta testers. And the beta testers see the course the way a student will see the course, but they'll see it before the course is released. That's the only difference. They don't see anything that a student doesn't see. Also means that if a person is already course staff and wants to be beta tester as well, the beta test account should be under a different email address, because it's always going to default to your higher level of access. So if you're beta testing, you want to see the simplest part. All right, and we already looked at how to set course teams. Yay, we're ahead of the game there. In the learning management system, this is when you're actually looking at the course in edX. When you want to see the course team, again from the dashboard, you go to the instructor list and then the list of membership. That's also where you add beta testers. Yeah, and I mentioned this already. If one person is working on a particular subsection or unit or whatever, if somebody else is working on it at the same time, you're going to run into problems. That's why you have to coordinate. You don't necessarily have to say, only Phil is working on this one and only Joe is working on that one. But if Joe and Phil both have access to work on this unit, Joe and Phil have to communicate so they're not doing it at the same time. That's all. Courses can be backed up. They can also be imported in. That's why, like for instance, I said you can create a course in edX Edge, export that, and then import it into edX itself if you want to do it. It's also how you handle when you're doing the course again. You export a copy of the course and you import it again, so you're not rebuilding the course. You just have the same course with dropping out any of those things that happen on a offering by offering basis, and that's typically, you lose out the grading that's been happening, you lose out on discussions that have passed, that sort of thing. Briefly about the mobile app, it's still in early stages at edX, but because the videos are not flash-based or anything like that, typically these courses work fairly well on any tablet. But there's, whether iOS or Android, whatever. There is a mobile app that's available now for edX. It's still being worked on, and part of the deal for that one is it will add the ability to have offline access to online resources. It means they have to be able to download it and the like. It's still early stages. Only 1 or 2 courses have rolled out for use on it, but it's coming soon.
Can it be accessed through iTunes U?
No, iTunes U is separate. IEEE does have an iTunes U area in it, but it's kind of dormant right now, and it's separate from edX. I think edX has some channels in iTunes, but they're not set up as iTunes U courses, which is a different kind of format. We have an exercise here, but I think we've played enough with inviting students to enroll. So let's skip on from here. There'll be a separate PowerPoint with all the exercises put together if you want to be able to go through and play with all of them. I'll share those. I'll share all the PowerPoints tonight with everybody right after we get out of here. If anybody wants to play with that. But let's move on to the next section now. HTML video and discussion components. And we're all okay on time? We break for lunch at 1, is that right?
12:55.
12:55, okay. Okay. I saw somebody already had access to this earlier. There is a huge amount of documentation available for edX, and it's really very well done, very straightforward. So I recommend you take a look at it. Again, I'll share this link with you, but the docs.edx.org has very robust documentation. This is, a lot of it boils down into this. More than you would ever want to know, and it's constantly being updated as there are changes in the platform, and as things work a little bit differently. It's very searchable, so if you have a question about what you're trying to do, you can find it in here. Again, I'm not going to. How's this for a silly exercise? Go there and bookmark it. So I'll just say go there and bookmark it at some point when you're on your own computer. This is another course in Studio that it's basically for playing with MOOC 101X. I think you're able to set up for it, but we'll skip on that. All right. Within most courses, HTML components are kind of well, as it says, a basic building block of the course content. So we're talking now about components within a section of the course. You basically can put anything you can put on the web into an edX course. It has two different ways to put the content in. There's a WYSIWYG visual editor, or if you're the kind who prefers working in raw HTML, there are still a few of us around, you can do HTML directly. This should be pretty familiar if you've ever built any kind of web page in a WYSIWYG tool. You know, choose heading stuff. I don't think we need to. Now, the one thing that is a little bit different about the way edX handles things is not so much links, but anything that's an image or anything else, you can't add it directly from the editing page. You have to upload all files that are going to be part of the course in a separate thing and grab the URL for it. I hope they're going to improve that, so that you can add it right through the HTML thing. But there's an overall files and uploads link on the within Studio, where you put all the images you're going to use, not the videos, but everything else, anything else that you want downloadable, PDFs, that sort of thing, and you have to track what the URLs for them are to put here when you're linking to them. It's a little bit awkward, but I hope that's going to get better. You can also link to anything anywhere in the web as well. So if you have stuff on your own site or anywhere, you can put it in here. And that includes, you know, images as well. You can display images that are from external websites. But
and if you upload an image or a diagram, so does it stay in a repository, or is the link refreshed every time that you log into the course?
it stays in the repository. So yeah, they use static URLs there. So and that includes if you back up the course and then reload it, those URLs will change, but they'll be consistent within that particular course.
So it's not on a Java-based engine.
Correct. Okay. Yeah, and just a point, we talked a little bit about adaptive technologies. These are some of the places where you're adding links and where you're adding images, where that'll come into play. edX does require things like descriptions of the images for people who are visually impaired. You can also include a link to a longer description if you can't if you can't describe the image in a few words and you want to link out to an external descriptor, you can do that here. They also recommend that if you're putting a graph up, not everybody can work with graphs well, particularly a screen reader can't read a graph. So they recommend that you include a table form as well that could be read by a screen reader, or that sort of thing. Adding an image is, again, straightforward except for that kind of URL part. Again, you've loaded the image separately, you've got to grab the URL, and when you insert the image here, you've got to put that URL in. Yeah, so this is the files and uploads screen, which is at the sort of top level of Studio. You go in and put it in, and you can, one important part of this is you want to decide whether anything you're uploading is something you want people to be able to link to and have other people have access to or not. There's a little padlock symbol. If the padlock is locked, only students who are registered and authenticated in your course can download or view the item that's there. If it's unlocked, me as a student could grab the URL and send it to somebody else and say, hey, take a look at this, and they'd be able to open it up.
So it can become Spock.
Yeah, yeah. So just kind of a decision on whether you want, how you want to control the contents of your course. I see arguments either way depending on what it is. You know, particularly if you're, I wouldn't recommend necessarily for most of the stuff you put in using stuff that you have to pay a license fee for.
Yeah.
But if you're paying a license fee based on the number of students who are taking the course, don't let the URL be publicly shareable.
Yeah.
You know?
Or I can share it through Amazon, for
Right.
instance.
Correct. Okay. Other ways of viewing stuff, again, you can select that students are able to see your image as a full screen, which is a nice thing sometimes, especially if you're having complex chart data or something like that. Being able to expand to full screen is important. There's also a tool built into edX that lets students zoom into certain parts of an image. And then a really important tool in edX is iframe. Are people familiar with iframe? Okay. It's more than anything, it's kind of a plug-in language that lets you incorporate pretty much any web page that you have access to into your edX course transparently. We're using it primarily right now to link to an external survey where we're asking students about their course experience, but we want to put all that together across all of our courses. So we're using an external survey tool. To students, it just appears within a window on their, but you might, it's a way, for instance, if you have a Facebook page for the course, you can use an iframe to put it in there. The iframe language can also include authentication for that page. So if it's a password protected page, you can build the password into the iframe so that it gets displayed clearly there. It's really used for kind of looking at stuff. Because it's external to the learning management system. For instance, you could build an exercise that lives out on the web, but you can include it in the edX grading because it's not in edX. It's somewhere else. But it's a way of not having to recreate stuff too.
Artifacts.
Yeah. Okay, video component, and this is probably, I don't know, this is one of the things that probably gives instructors the most anxiety doing videos. But from a technical standpoint, the videos in edX all live on YouTube. Within edX, students cannot go to YouTube. Like, you know how if you're looking at a YouTube video embedded somewhere else, there's a little link for view in YouTube. That link does not appear in edX. So your videos can be on, in an unlisted area of of YouTube, so that nobody can see it unless they have the URL for it. And using the edX tool, they can never see the URL for the video, which means they can't then share that URL with any figure around $150 per video hour to do a time transcript.
If I download the video from YouTube and can I insert it then into the course so that it stays in the repository?
Yes, there are a number of different ways of doing that. In fact, if you have a transcript of the course that's not timed, YouTube itself will create the timings. So you upload the transcript and they'll create the timings. From YouTube, you can download the transcript and do anything you want with it. Within the edX platform, there's actually the ability for students to download the transcript if they want to. You can also create a PDF of it and make it as a downloadable handout or that sort of thing.
I was just thinking because sometimes YouTube changes stuff around, or as it grows, some things disappear, and you might find this valuable short video to upload. That's the other thing as well, the length of the videos.
Right.
So, but that's why we don't use or allow students always with Facebook in the labs because of bandwidth problems.
Right, and that's the other advantage to the downloadable version of the thing for those students who don't have good broadband access. They can choose to download the video in the background. I mean, some folks will click the link and come back next morning to watch the video because you can't download from YouTube directly. Makes it important to have that secondary thing, and to think about you can do multiples too.
Yes.
You can have the downloadable high definition video. You can have a downloadable low definition video, and all of them using the transcript. So again, it's something. This is one of the areas that's a little bit awkward about building a course in edX, is you have to upload to YouTube kind of separately and grab the URL to put into edX. But it's dealable. It's not.
I know. There's always a solution around.
Yeah.
So,
And you say so. This is how the video gets added. So this is within edX Studio. So you give it a name. This is the name that students will see to it, and this is separate from whatever name it has in YouTube. You name it whatever you want there. You put in the YouTube URL there, and that's what you got to copy it out of YouTube and then put it in here, and then you see the opportunity to add URLs for other versions. And the example here is S3 at Amazon. Is a downloadable thing. If you're using, this is another area of potential expense, is hosting of video files outside of YouTube, where you get charged by the kind of the gigabyte, which it's not that big an expense unless you have one of the blockbuster courses that get 200,000 people doing it. But anything published through IEEE, we use the IEEE servers, and so anything that we're doing, none of our partners get charged for that or anything like that, at least right now. If you have uploaded the timed transcript into YouTube, it'll automatically recognize it here, and so that becomes. But you handle the transcript through YouTube directly. This is back in the studio dialog. It's advanced settings for video. This is also the place where you might add other languages for transcripts. You can upload them in here. You can also decide here whether the transcript is downloadable directly while they're looking at the video. It's a choice you make, whether it goes up. You can also, if you've created a nice pretty version of the transcript or other handouts, say you want students to have your slides that you might be using in the thing. You can put them all here, so it's all kind of contained with the video. Anything you want them to be able to download with it. Those same materials can be made available elsewhere in the edX course, like there's a course handouts tab, that sort of thing. But this is one way of doing it. If they're looking at the video and there are handouts associated with that video, they can download directly from the same page.
What a few of our lecturers also do is, and I like the idea, they convert the video into an audio file and then send the file through Dragon Dictator,
Yeah.
which dictates it automatically. And then that's what they give to the sight disabilities or even the hearing. We work with JAWS, and that tends to read it back to the students as well.
Yeah, and so, depending on what software you're using and the speaking style of the speaker themselves, you can get good or bad results on the machine dictation. I strongly recommend, if you're using machine dictation, that a real live human being looks it over and makes corrections as necessary.
Because ms and ahs and things like that
Right.
becomes
But if you have a good machine transcript, that makes it relatively easy to do the timed transcript. It's pretty simple in YouTube itself. There's a captions and transcripts tab in there to upload your transcript, and then click add timings. And YouTube will do that automatically and then output that file in the correct format for edX. So that makes it a lot easier. I did discover that if you upload the wrong transcript for the video that you're doing, YouTube will still add timings. And it will completely not match what's on there.
a movie and a documentary all together.
But that's also a way of being able to add multiple language time transcripts as well.
Do your own in PowerPoint.
Correct. So a lot of ways to do that. And again, we talked about alternative locations for accessibility. Put it somewhere else besides YouTube. Most of your students are going to get it on YouTube, but put some other stuff. Discussion forums. Again, this is part of what makes an edX course a community, or the discussion forums. I won't read these. These are, fairly typical features. The one thing I will highlight in here is assigning students to cohort groups, which is growing within edX. The ability to divvy your students up into different groups based on some shared trait or random. If you have a very large course, sometimes you want to make smaller discussion groups, so that in the interest of kind of building community there, you get to know people, you get to share. But another way of using cohorts is, for instance, if you have on-campus people and non-campus people, you can divide them into cohorts that way. So one cohort might be 10,000 people, and another cohort might be 100 people, your own students. Some universities have used it for, they've created a cohort for any current or former student. And that you can do just by, if they have an email address supplied by the university, then they're automatically in this other cohort.
Or in our case, different campuses.
Correct. And that, by the way, so we haven't talked at all about generating revenue out of MOOCs. Cohort's not just about discussion forums. You can also, any content within a course can be accessible to everybody or accessible only to people in this cohort. edX is adding the ability to make paid cohorts a part of the course as well. So you might have premium content that's only available to people who have paid a fee on an otherwise free course. Just a thing to think about. So forums are visible in two places. There's a discussion tab that's part of the overall menu bar for the course. But you can also have a discussion component within a particular unit of a course, which is useful sometimes if you really want to say, first of all, it doesn't become visible until that part of the course has gone public. And it's a question you can preload. Below, let's discuss blah, blah, blah. People use it for anything from, it's the first week of the course, tell us who you are and where you're from, to discussions about the particular topic. Those things become visible under the discussion tab once they're live, but you can introduce them there. Neither is necessary. So this is a view of the overall discussion thing, and I want to talk a little bit about terminology used within the discussion. So nothing too earth-shattering. Posts, responses, and comments. So the post is just the first person who's putting the list there. That then threads down into a set of responses, and then you can kind of there's not much difference between a comment and a response, but well, the response is more to the first question. The comment is a response to a response, I guess is the way to look at it. We'll talk a little bit more. So there are a couple of other features within the feature. So there are different tags that are part of it. Staff members get automatically tagged as staff within the discussion. So students know that this is, I hope, a more authoritative voice on different things. When someone posts a discussion topic, they can tag them as either a question or as a discussion format. Your moderators can change that if it's used inappropriately. And if it is a question, you can put a check mark on the answer to that question. Any student or you for that matter can filter the discussions by what's been talked about most recently, or an interesting feature is by how many votes it's gotten. So this is a technique, for instance, on some of the courses that have a lot of participation. Say you've got 50,000 students in the course and you can't respond to every single question personally. In the guidelines for the discussion, you recommend to students, don't post a new question if you have a new question. If you read somebody else has got that question, vote it up. And you may not be able, as the instructor, you may not be able to respond to every question, but you can respond to the top 10. The ones that have the most votes that people most want to see. It's also a sort of thing that we haven't talked about videos too much yet. It's a nice thing to do, like if you're releasing a course week to week over a section, you look for what the questions that have been voted up for, and create a video for a recap of the last week. And this can be very casual, done through a webcam, that sort of thing. So looking at the discussion forums this week, I see that there's a lot of confusion around this topic. Maybe you answer the question, maybe you just point to where they can find more information. But that's a way of creating more immediacy in the course, making it feel less like a canned thing that people come to and go back to. You can also tag a post as something you want to follow, so you want to see when responses come up. I think it's automatic if you respond to it, you're following, but you can override that and not follow. So this is discussion with within a this is settings for the discussion tab, where you can set different kinds of things. You can kind of take control of this and put it in different areas. So set up like overall topics for questions, and then even have folks be able to pull down from a list of stuff. And if you want a more controlled discussion, this is how you do it under the discussion tab. So and this is used mainly within a unit. So for instance, you can use it to you can use discussion to do a poll, or that kind of thing.
Can that data be downloaded?
Yeah, I'm a little less familiar with how data gets pulled out of the discussions. On the assessments, for sure. So you can use assessments for polling as well, and see how people respond to things and that sort of thing. You might make a note to ask the edX team that this afternoon, because I don't know the answer to that.
The thing is, because with educational and social research, there's a lot of qualitative data. So if I want to draw data from a discussion forum, which is my gathering instrument, what we usually do is we put it through Atlas TI to analyze the qualitative data. And that's why, now we can get it down into a normal CSV format or into text format. So that's why I'm asking the question. Because if I've got a very large group, I get very rich data from it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know the answer to that. Guys from edX should. And
I think it can be zipped or downloaded.
Yeah.
It must be that option.
I think so, because the typical, like if you're doing if you're doing a backup of the course, the discussion data isn't included in the backup of the course. But there is a lot of data available about the course when it's finished running. Whether the discussion stuff is part of that, I'm not sure, and how it's presented.
Because in a normal assessment, if there's like a paragraph type of question, and you can download those results, however.
Yeah, sure.
So, so that's there must be from the discussion also, but I know it's a separate database.
Yeah, that stuff definitely downloads out of the assessment stuff, but I just don't know about the discussion. So we talked a little bit about cohorts. I don't think we need to do more about this. It can be random. We will talk a little bit about cohorts are not turned on automatically. You have to turn them on in the course. There are guidelines for if you're doing automated assignment. They say that the ideal size for a cohort is 200 to 500 active members, and it should probably say active there, because this gets a little bit confusing. So basically, one cohort for every 10,000 students, because they figure out of 10,000 students, 200 to 400 are going to be active in the discussion forums. So the way they present it on this slide is a little confusing. Basically, one cohort for every 10,000 students gives you active cohorts in the discussions. Okay.
Can I also? Sorry, I'm asking a lot of questions now.
The questions are good. That's why I didn't send a video.
But if I've got the asynchronous discussion taking place.
Yes.
But is there? I haven't got my login yet. But the thing is there a chat tool?
There isn't a direct chat tool, but the community tab lets you incorporate things like that. So you can. Because again, think about it also in terms of how many people are live at any particular time, and whether is there an instructor available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because that's when students are in the course.
Unless I schedule.
That's right. And so using the community tab or some other tools, you can have virtual office hours where you can incorporate either some folks will use a Google Hangout, that sort of thing, and students don't have to go somewhere else to launch it. It's embedded within the community tab, and you can come in, and you can do it via chat as well, or whatever tool you want to use. And so I do recommend that. Forum roles briefly, and this is one thing. This caught me that I wasn't aware of it. Just because you're the instructor on a course, or just because you're course staff, you don't automatically have a role in the discussion forums. You have to add that. I just assumed because I was in charge of everything that I was in charge of.
Big brother.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's easy enough to add. Yeah, Matt?
Do you have to add them for each discussion that you create? Or?
No, it's course-wide.
Okay.
Yeah. It's so, excuse me. So there's admin, moderator, TA, and learner. And learner is the default. Basically, they can create posts and they can flag posts that they think are inappropriate. The TAs can pin posts, and we didn't talk about pin posts, but you can pin a post so that it's at the top of the discussion forum, so that people will see it. They can edit other people's posts or delete them. and they can highlight things in different ways. It's basically the same as a forum moderator. The one big thing that the forum administrator can do is make other moderators. And it's only somebody with admin who can add other folks. And highlighted. Instructors and staff have no forum privileges by default. They start over here. They can add themselves as administrators. All right, so just we've covered a lot of ground here. So things to recap on it. In terms of accessibility, for images, use descriptions. Format text in ways that are readable. Make sure you have other URLs for your videos, and time transcripts are crucial within this. All of this again is documented under the edX docs, which is very well organized and clickable through. So I recommend you play with that. And while I'm recommending things that you should do, I haven't said this before, but I'll say it now. And we didn't talk. Actually, one of the questions I wanted to ask when we started is how many people have actually taken a MOOC from somebody? Have taken a MOOC from one of the MOOC providers? From Coursera, edX, that sort of thing. Nobody? Do that. Yeah, you have. It's nothing better to figure out what a student wants than to be a student. And I don't think you necessarily even have to go in and do everything, earn the certificate, whatever. But find a topic that interests you, that is not in your area of expertise. Sign up for a MOOC and look at how they're doing it. It's great for first of all for ideas on how to present stuff, but it's also a chance to put yourself in a student's shoes and see what they see and experience the frustrations they experience and the joys that they experience and that sort of thing. This is different for all of us, so. You will know better how to do this if you've lived it through the experience of a student. Right? I think we will not. Let's see. Will we do this? I'm just looking at this exercise and whether we want to do it. I'm going to say no right now. so we'll move on to the next section. How are we on time? We have about 20 minutes before lunch?
That is correct, yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the next section then. We're doing okay. We're doing okay.
Yes.
This is a little bit of a misnomer on this one. It's titled Marketing Your Course, but it's more, that's part of what we're talking about, but it's also about driving enrollments and student engagement and that sort of thing. So just in terms of types of courses and how huge courses are relatively rare. They call them the blockbuster courses. Those are ones that really get 100,000 to 300,000 or more enrollments. What's more typical in sort of the popular core courses are enrollments of 20,000 to 60,000. Is kind of where edX's sweet spot is right now. But there are also a lot of niche courses and a growing number of niche courses that are in more specific topic areas that'll get 5,000 or 10,000 as students. So people put a lot of weight sometimes into how many people sign up for the course. If your topic is, I don't know, theories of electromagnetic waves in a magnetic environment, you're not going to get 300,000 people sign up. But that's okay. Reach the students you want to reach and decide how you're defining success for your course. In terms of characteristics for the different types of courses we just hit, the blockbuster courses, obviously they tend to be introductory level with no prerequisites. They're in the kind of the hot areas. They're typically skill-based with tangible benefits at the end. I take this course and I'm more employable. Those are things that drive enrollment. In the core courses, I I cannot speak anymore. Core courses. These are still popular subject areas, but maybe the benefits are a little bit less tangible. Maybe they're a little higher level, or they're just not as broad-based as others. The niche ones obviously are very specific subject areas, and they may also be advanced topics that require, you've completed these courses before you take it, or you have the requisite knowledge, or you have 10 years experience or whatever. Obviously you're limiting your audience, so the number of people who sign up should be lower. If you have a very niche course that has 300,000 people sign up for it, you're not communicating that course very well because the wrong people are in it. Other considerations, we haven't sort of defined what a course is, but courses can be self-paced, meaning that fully self-study, which means they're just kind of up all the time and people go in and there's not a lot of moderation, there's not a lot of instructor interaction, it just keeps running and running and running. Or you can schedule, I'm doing this session this month and I'll do it again in 6 months, but in the meantime it's not going to be available. And those things will have an effect on how many people actually sign up. In terms of deciding the who, what, and why of the course, things you need to think about before creating a course. Who's your audience? Who's going to be interested in taking the course, and from the basis of your course, what do they have to do before they come to it? What do they need to know before they take the course? And then you want to think as well about, given those, what's the potential audience size, because that's going to affect how you build the course. It's going to affect how you administer the course. If you've got 150,000 students, obviously the ways you interact with them have got to be different than if you have 100 students or even 5,000 students. Course naming. God bless academics. They like really complicated titles to things. Simple and descriptive is the best thing I can say. Remember that students are going to, they're looking at your course in a catalog of courses, or they've come up, they've done a search, that sort of thing, and they're scanning a page. They're looking for the words that really jump out at them, that are at the core of the interest level. And if you've got a course title that's 30 words long, no one's going to read even your course title. So simple, descriptive, to the point. What is this course? What good is it to me? And then as you're building the course, think about it from the student perspective. Why would they want to take it, right? So what are the benefits? What are the skills they'll learn? And then what makes it different from everything available? The smartest professor in the world is teaching this course. It's coming from the school that is known best for this. It's a subject matter that nobody else covers. We're doing it differently than somebody else. What makes your course different? Because it's part of what you're going to want to communicate to the world as well. If your course is different because you do X, then that information should be in your course about page. Oh cool, I want a course that does X. As opposed to finding out 3 weeks in, I found, oh look, it's X, good. That's cool. It means short content, simple content, focus on the benefits of the course. Don't just grab your syllabus from your on-campus course and put it up there. Again, you're competing for eyeballs. And so the About page is really, in a nutshell, boom. This is the crucial information you need to know about whether you want to take this course or not. Okay? And that includes, we'll talk later about, most course About pages include a video talking about the course as well. We'll talk about that. Again, God bless academics, they want to do a 15-minute video on why you should take this course. Students are going to watch the first 30 seconds of that video. so short. So again, and that's basically if you're wanting to entice the students to enroll a course. If you want them to be able to find your course through a search, and people are going to search through Google, they're going to search directly on edX. You want to find those keywords that are most likely to get people to find to get your course in a search result. So the things that are most relevant, you know, so you can look at other courses that are doing the same kind of thing and see how they're structured for you. You know, Google has AdWords and stuff, and those keywords should be included in the title of your course, because that's going to get your search results higher. Course about video, talked about it a little bit already. So again, they're viewed on average between 30 and 40 seconds. Grab their attention right away. And again, you're focusing on the benefit of the course. There's some examples here. I think though, if I play the video, will the audio go over the system? Will people be able to hear it? Okay, so I don't want to look at all of these, but let's. These are a couple of sample about videos. Let's look at the one for. Oh, what does it say? It wants me to log in. I don't have a login for. It's a campus login.
Just cancel.
Just cancel. Yeah, I don't want to. Maybe if I go to the edX channel and. Oops. Oh, no, that's pity. Okay, well, you'll have to look at these offline, I guess. Sorry about that. They don't have to be difficult to do. They don't have to be expensive to do. It's one of the misnomers or misapprehensions that people have on creating video for courses, and we'll talk more about creating video later. It does not have to be huge production value, huge dollars. What it has to be is short, simple, engaging, and show your enthusiasm for the subject matter. But we'll talk more about that later. So again, when you get these slides, I encourage you just take a look at a couple of the about videos. Some of these, like the ones, anything that comes from Columbia University, they spend a lot of money on these things. But again, you don't have to spend a lot of money. Yeah, promotion and engagement are part of the course production process. Particularly engagement, thinking about how to engage with students has to be something you're thinking about from day one and part of it. But the course team is also an essential component of the promotion of the course. I don't think I need to read all of that, but there are a lot of different ways of promoting the course, both within your university's resources, edX's resources, if you're working with IEEE through IEEE's resources. edX sends out a student newsletter to, well, this says 3.1 million registered. I think they're now closing in on 4 million registered edX users. So a newsletter that talks about courses that are coming soon. That includes links to the course about page. The geography on the edX homepage is very prized. You do best if you're on that front page, and they try to rotate everything out on that front page sometimes, but you definitely see a spike in usage when you're on the front page of edX. And you see that everything here, so from the front page, this is maybe a good point to make here. So this is all students have to look at before they decide whether they're going to click on it. All right. We tend to want to, you know, in the course images as course teams, we want to dump as much information into that image as we can. So the course title and maybe some, you know, representative graphic and that sort of thing. You can see that these are all very, very simple graphics. You know, in typical, you know, we tend not to. What works best is not to put a lot of wording on the things, not to put your university logo in the graphic, that sort of thing. You know, an engaging image that's somewhat related to the topic area, a good title, and when it's starting. That's what students are going to look at before they decide whether they're going to click on it. If they haven't actually come up with it in the search, if they're just browsing.
What does verified in that context mean? It has been shown before? Or?
No, in this context, it means that there's a verified certificate that is available for purchase. So most courses come with what's called an honor certificate. The verified certificate requires payment, but it also requires the user to show a government ID to their computer. They take a webcam photo of their government ID that also matches to their face, and the system logs them and sees that they're really the person taking the assessments and that sort of thing. And if you get a verified certificate, you also get a secure link to that certificate that can be shared with other people. It can also be added to your LinkedIn profile, that sort of thing. And it's just a way to bring in some incremental revenue to the course. Okay. So we also, if you're publishing through IEEE's, we put that there's a special institution page for IEEEX that lists all of our courses that we're working on. I work in that building behind the behind the sign. We promoted on IEEE social media. This one happens to be the IEEE Continuing Education Facebook page, which is currently about 225,000 followers. We get less, but some on some of the other IEEE Facebook pages, which have more than 1 million followers, as well as Twitter and LinkedIn and all that good stuff. edX also has their own social media presence that they will share the about video on Facebook and Google Plus before the course launches. There are also, edX has blogs that they, course creators can blog on the edX site to kind of promote their course, but also talk about specific topics within the course. Because the instructor is sort of the public face of the course, them being able to show their expertise in some of these forums is very helpful to promoting the course. So blog posts, simple blog posts, pieces pulled from the course that go on Facebook and Twitter, that sort of thing, to promote. These are all important ways of establishing your credentials or the instructor's credentials as a real expert and as somebody whom the student will enjoy listening to, and just getting out there in the, like I said, you see, yeah, so edX, they're talking about blog posts that are under 500 words or about 500 words, and trying to connect your topic area with something that is current and relevant. It can also just be a simple personal introduction, who I am and why I'm the person you want to teach this course. What your experience is. Within the university, you leverage the university and alumni networks to push out, hey, look at the great thing we're doing here, please sign up, please share it on your networks. This is, I don't know, it's very much a grassroots kind of way of promoting courses, and it works really well. You have your own networks of people who know who you are and know your level of expertise. You share the information that you're working on this MOOC, that you're launching this MOOC with them. They share it with people whose opinion, who trust their opinion, and it's really a way of growing participation in the courses beyond your own individual network. We like to see stuff being promoted on the university web pages. We promote the IEEEX institution page on the IEEE web page, which gets, I don't know, millions of visits a month. Announcements from the individual universities in their own newsletters or online forums, that sort of thing. Because your university network knows best what your university is capable of doing. So there's a level of credibility with your own audience that, again, spreads from there. You promote to your audience promotes to their audience, because they think this is a valuable, good kind of thing. Yeah, and they do ask faculty if you're working to just email your friends and family, that sort of thing. And your own networks on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and at key conferences and organizations. Social media, I won't belabor the point. We also do within, if you're doing a course on a subject area somewhat related to something that either edX has done or that IEEEX has done, we send out emails to the people who took those courses in the past. Say, you liked that, here's a good one that's coming that you should be part of. The edX community tab. So that's everything offered from edX. Push stuff out there. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I suddenly changed gears without changing gears. I stripped them. All right. That was promoting your course and marketing your course. I'm sorry. Any questions about any of that? I ran through a lot in a short amount of time. It's basically a grassroots promotion of what you're doing, leveraging your networks, and as well as, edX does a good job of promoting, IEEE does a good job of promoting, but we're promoting you or your course team, and your networks know you guys better. And so sometimes you get different people, you get more effective marketing on that kind of local level. Does that make sense? Okay. And then in terms of engaging students, we've talked about some of this already, so I won't go too quickly. We talked about, or too slowly. We talked about the community tab where you can incorporate Facebook, Twitter, Google Hangouts, and other ways of engaging with students. Student engagement is one of the #1 determining factors about whether students actually stay with the course. Did they talk to somebody, whether it's somebody else in a discussion forum, the instructor, that personal connection is what creates more investment in the course. I know these people. I'm part of that group. I want to continue with the course. Other questions or ideas on the topic of particularly on promoting the course out in the world? Is that? No? I find typically that behind the column?
Yeah, behind the column.
There you go. Hi.
I had a question going back to the verification.
Yes.
And the government ID.
Yes.
If you're outside of the U.S., we want to, as you said, they need to give some certificate or something. How does that work then?
Yeah, so there are usually, if you're offering a verified certificate, there almost always also the ability to get the sort of unverified certificate that doesn't require an ID, it doesn't require the other. It doesn't give you the secure link to the certificate, but it gives you a certificate that you can print out and do what you want with it. You can make as a PDF, you can send it around. The verified certificates is relatively new. It's something that rolled out, I think, late in 2014. Honestly, in part as a way to try to build a little revenue to help support the kind of thing. The costs are, for the verified certificate, vary a lot. The minimum price is $25 US. What seems to be typical is around $50 US, but I've seen some that go up to 200 or more to get that certificate. There is also the ability, just so you know, to sell courses in edX's professional ed area. So you can sell access to a course. Just if you pay, you get in. If you don't pay, you don't get in. You can also do certificates based on the completion of multiple courses. But at a basic level, the honor certificate is no cost and doesn't require an ID. Other questions or ideas for how to do any of this stuff? Since? All right. 12:47. We said we were breaking at 12:50.
Yeah, that's
right?
correct. Yeah. Yes, we are there.
All right. So we're there. See how well I managed time?
That was good.
All right. So when we come back at when are we back?
We are back at 2 o'clock.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
When we come back at 2 o'clock, we're going to be continuing both the presentations and the lab exercises and stuff. But as I say, there will also be a team from edX available. I think on Google Hangout. We'll have to figure out the logistics of that exactly. So we've had a couple of questions this morning that I couldn't answer, but also we'll be doing some more lab-based kind of stuff. So they'll be here to support that as well when we hit questions and the like. Other than that, do we know where we're going for lunch? What we do for here?
Yeah, we are going to the same place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you. And I'll be around if anybody has questions or wants to talk during the break. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. but I think the level is which it is.
Yeah.
The problem for yourself who is talking and
Well, I mean, I'm fine. I don't know where else this might go.
I think just put it yeah. I don't do that.
Yeah.
For yourself, I think that would be fine. That is the one who is doing
Yeah, and I'm having taken off the jacket. Okay. Where are we? Oh, we're at 2 o'clock.
Yes, I think we.
Do a quick. All right, so we're about ready to get started again. I'm going to double check the Google Hangout with the folks from edX. Now I'm not sure whether we're going to be able to. We don't have camera or audio on our side, but to be able to ask them, we can use chat to ask them questions if they're joining. But I'm not sure whether it's going to work out. It's my giant round head. Yeah, so I don't know. It may be that the university networks may be blocking access to this, but
Maybe slow.
a topic that I really like talking on. It's really all about best practices for creating your lecture videos, for lack of a better term, within the edX platform. Because it's a little bit different than you might expect, and a little bit different than maybe some of the other videos you've either seen or done. So there are a couple of different questions you have to ask yourself as you're getting ready to record yourself or someone else on your course team in presenting to your students. One is how you work best in terms of presenting. You know, and that really means, you know, first of all, do you need an audience? Some instructors really have to have an audience to interact with, to go well. Would you prefer to be even just seated? Do you want to do whiteboarding of stuff, or just talk directly to the camera? It's important for whoever is recording their video to be comfortable in the way they're doing it, because that comfort level is essential to how well you're gonna come across. I know we have all seen videos with someone who talks to the camera like this and just goes, "Thank you for joining us for today's discussion." Nobody will watch that. You also have to look at what you have access to already in terms of software or skills for developing this. Because I know you have a video team here at the university, but for a lot of this, it's sometimes simpler how much you can do on your own, right, rather than involving outside teams. Why you want to do this is part of the questions you want to ask for. And you really need to look at how much time you're willing to commit to this, both from the instructor standpoint and the course team. We are not going to go through all this. That's okay. Here's a video best practice. Never put that much text on a slide. So going on. So there's stages here. I hope you're getting the message from me that planning is the most important stage of developing these kind of courses. This includes your planning of your videos. We're going to talk about some of the special needs for length and that sort of thing, but you really have to go into video recording knowing what you're going to do in that video and not wing it that much. for, you know, some of this is kind of internal and I don't necessarily need to cover it, but really talking about meeting well in advance of recording the course with the people who are helping to kind of put it together, so you can plan out, even storyboard some of the videos. So I know here I'm going to do this. I know here I'm going to do that. So in terms of recording, one of the things it's a little bit counterintuitive. You know that you have to create video for each segment that you're going to do. The inclination sometimes is to knock it all out at once. Do all the video that you want to record for the whole course at one time, so you don't have to go back and revisit it or anything like that. That's probably not the best way to go about it. What is recommended generally is to build 1 week's worth of content, to create a prototype for how the course is going to be overall. So every element that you're going to put in a lesson, whether it's instructor videos, it's PowerPoint handouts, PDF handouts, assessments that happen, all the pieces that are going together to put together one lesson, do one of them, because you're going to learn along the way the things you're doing right, the things you're doing wrong, ways of improving the process. When you see it all hang together, it may be that, oh, I should plan for more assessment here. I should maybe have an extra video segment to do that. So building a prototype your first time out is kind of important. To build 1 week where you feel like, okay, that's a good solid week, and I can use that as a template for the rest of what I'm going to do. And that works with the rest of the course team. It will also give you a pretty good idea of how much time commitment you're talking about going forward, which is essential when you're planning out, your whole production schedule, and particularly when you're planning to release the course to the public. To maximize the number of students who will enroll in your course, you want to be able to put it in the catalog with a committed launch date no less than 2 or 3 months before students are going to start taking it. So building the prototype week will help you be more comfortable with committing to a launch date, because you know what's involved in building each week. What you don't want to do is announce a launch date, find out that you've bitten off more than you can chew, and have to push it back 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, or cancel the course. That doesn't look good. Your biggest time pieces here, not necessarily even in the recording of the video itself, although it takes time. It's editing it on the back. Well, it's planning for it up front. It's editing it on the back end and kind of creating the transcription and upload. The actual sitting down and recording is relatively quick and painless if you're comfortable. So yeah, this is kind of a typical time frame for how to do things. This assumes a little bit that you have access to a producer and a media coordinator. That these are largely edX roles, which again can be filled by course team people. But pre-production, where you're really planning what you're going to do in the videos, 2 to 6 weeks. Your presenter, if it's not something that they've done a lot of, not real comfortable in front of the camera, needs some time just being coached on what's the best way of recording. And this doesn't have to be in person. Like, for instance, if you're working with us at IEEE, you can record a little video, send it to us, and we'll give you some feedback, some coaching on how to be more natural, how to be more effective, but also things like how to light and how to, what kind of backgrounds there ought to be, that sort of thing. The production consultation is again about a week. That is planning out how you're going to do production, how to segment stuff. And reflected here, post-production. This is really when you're editing pieces of video together. You may be editing together the instructor video with a whiteboard video, that sort of thing. cutting out the flubs, that sort of, that's longer term. That's 2 to 4 months of doing that.
We provide those services at CAT.
Yeah.
And it's just, if someone didn't know, it's in the B5 building on APK. There's the whole media studio, there's an Apple incubator, there's a Microsoft incubator, and the guys doing all of this. We've got graphic designers as well if you want animations or things like that. So they do it all for the university. And promote.
Yeah, well that's great.
What's that building address?
B5, the B5 building. It's just behind the engineering faculty on APK.
Okay, so it's building B5, and what is the name of the unit?
It's CAT.
CAT.
Yes. Center for Academic Technology.
Center for Academic Technology. That's a really good resource to have. That said, I imagine they want to be involved as early in the process as possible, so that they can plan their time frames. And again, they're probably going to have their own time frames for some of this kind of stuff, but as a broad guideline, so that you don't expect, well, I shot my video this week, why can't we launch 2 weeks from
Can
now?
we use the same time frames?
Yeah. So, and planning for the transcription services generally will have a human person listening to the video and typing out what you're saying. So obviously that takes time as well. So there are ways of getting around it electronically, but even then you have to have somebody who's checking over to make sure that it's correct. So everything takes more time than you think it will take. So start off thinking it's going to take longer than it will. Okay, so media best practices. So a few things here. Remember that this is different than other ways that you've seen video done. Within this environment, what we're really talking about when it comes down to it is think about it as the instructor, if you're recording, right? It's you as the instructor, and you are talking to one person. As it happens, there are 100,000 one persons, but the feel of the video and the experience for the user is the instructor is talking to me. So they have found that big, a video like this, they're shooting me here. The fact that I'm talking to a room full of people is far less effective in a MOOC environment than a one-on-one, I'm talking to you kind of environment. And there's good news around that. One is shooting that is a whole lot easier than some of the other ways we tend to shoot video. You don't have to. It's pretty inexpensive to sit down and talk with a camera. For one of the things, okay, so visual engagement with the edX student. Just the one-on-one talking sometimes isn't kind of enough. You add in some other things, and it may be, editing in, some illustrations to show. What's been used with great effectiveness is a whiteboard video. Are people familiar with Khan Academy?
Yep.
Have we seen it? The very simple tablet, pen on a tablet kind of markup, which can use, markup PowerPoints or just mark up a blank screen. They have found, we'll talk about this more in a little bit, it's very effective to go back and forth from the whiteboard screen with a little bit of interaction, circling things, underlining things, simple stuff that you wouldn't really think much about. Go back and forth between that and the instructor talking to the student. It creates a little bit of motion within the video, helps keep the students engaged in watching, more so than either one by themselves. And it's interesting. And as the instructor talking to the camera, I've said this a couple of times, the single most important factor for whether the students are going to continue watching is you. Is the enthusiasm you bring, the passion you bring. We have a tendency when the camera is pointed at us to get too formal, to get too quiet, to restrict our hand motions, to just kind of talk like this. Sometimes we do it because we're afraid that if we talk fast, the students aren't going to understand us, especially if their first language is not the same as our first language, or we have an accent, or they have an accent. And those are all valid concerns, but in the end, there are tools within the platform to mitigate some of those understanding issues. More important than even that level of understanding in the video is that visual engagement, is that engagement, the enthusiasm, the excitement that comes because you care about this topic, right? And that infects the student. And in that one-on-one environment where they're sitting alone somewhere watching you on a computer screen, if you don't have that level of I don't know, commitment to the topic, the interest, if you're not showing that level of interest, the students aren't going to either, and they're going to turn you off pretty quickly. I'll just mention this briefly. I don't know whether the Media Center here can do this kind of thing. There are some instructors who work way better talking to an audience or talking to students and having that feedback back and forth. There are ways of accommodating that, but as an instructor, on a one-on-one kind of basis, right? Implied in that is that you are looking directly at the camera and you're talking to the camera, because the camera is your student. Your student's in there. Hi, student. But if you're talking to a room full of people, now I'm ignoring the rest of you while I'm talking to the camera, all right? What you're seeing here, what they call the Iteratron style capture, the instructor is, actually this one's the student. You have the instructor looking at a camera that uses an iPad to show somebody sitting in front of a camera somewhere else. So the instructor is then talking to the camera, but looking at the face of the student that's there, who's giving visual cues. Yes, I get that. Yes, I understand that sort of thing. They're doing the same thing in the lecture hall capture in the upper left picture here, where the instructor again is talking to the camera, even though there's a room full of students, because that instructor needs the students there. Other things. You really need to find some ways to personalize the course for the students. We talked about humor being a concern on some levels, but humor is also pretty important to the learning process, particularly in this setting. And so always take your subject seriously, but don't necessarily take yourself seriously. You know, students in particular appreciate that you're making an effort to try to make it interesting. And it's interesting, in these kind of audiences, the bar for what's funny is pretty low. You know, you don't have to be really funny to be appreciated for being funny. I present to IEEE all the time. I know of which I speak. A lame joke will go over really well. But you see, these guys are introducing some things to add both a little humor and a little visual concept. Students love chainsaws. If you have a lecture you can work a chainsaw into, that's a winner. And robots too, for that matter. And of course I think he's got a Cal State hat on the robot and is talking to it and smiling with it. I would like to be able to show you this video, but again, the videos aren't working. When you get the slides, take a look at it. This is a very simple video. Again, he's talking directly to the camera. He's taking it out of outside, which has its own complicating factors. But Media Center can help you with this. Going outside when you're not controlling the environment can be detrimental, particularly to the audio. And audio is king here. But with a professional camera crew, it's usually handleable. He's standing in front of you. See, that's he's at a zoo. That's a lion back there, and they take a couple of shots of the lion, sort of yelling at him at some point. But again, it brings a little visual interest. It's not to say you have to do that kind of thing. Again, the most important thing is your own engagement and the interest that you show and deliver. This one as well incorporates some some other images, and it goes back and forth between the fine art pieces that they zoom in on, as well as the instructor talking. This is also a video in the presentation, so when you get the presentation, if you could look at it and see some examples, it's good. So we talked about some of the different ways that students access this material. Sometimes it's very granular. As we talked about earlier, they may be coming into the course to learn one thing about one part of the subject, right? To facilitate that, every video segment should really be self-contained to address this concept. And that plays into length as well, that shorter is generally better. So if you have longer segments, or if you have a topic that goes on longer than kind of the ideal, which is 7 minutes, no longer than a 7-minute video, which is sometimes tough to do. And that's where the planning comes in, because you really have to think about, okay, this topic takes me 20 minutes to talk about. What can I do to break that down into 7-minute segments? Right? That's not always easy on the fly, you know, to be able to figure that, and that's where the planning comes in, and being able to write out, okay, in segment 1 I'm going to talk about this topic, and we're going to stop, and then in segment 2 I'll talk about that topic. Yeah, segment durations, you know, we keep moving the ideal segment length shorter. It used to be between 8 to 12 minutes. Now edX is recommending between 3 and 7 minutes. And we're going to see, we have actual data to back that up, which we'll talk. And here's some of it here. This is how long students listen, and this is two different. Are lectures that were prepared specifically for edX, so planned from the beginning for edX, and looking at how long they are versus how long people watch, or the amount of engagement. So 1.0 on the left side being 100%, everybody's still watching. Look what happens when you get past that 6 point, oh, and I'm sorry, the bottom line, the orange line with the triangles, that's when lectures have been captured in a lecture hall and then taken and cut up into segments, so the same lengths. You see how quickly people drop off. Once you get past that 9 to 12 minute rating, they just drop off. And I've seen other things that when you get about 12, at 12 minutes, you've lost half your audience. At 13 minutes, you've lost another half. At 14 minutes, you've lost another half. They drop off pretty quickly from there. And this, by the way, is based on research done by Philip Grau at Rochester University. This next table is also kind of a condensation of recommendations that come from that study. I have in the slide. This is actually my slide, not edX's, but there's a link to the study here if you're interested in it. It's really on student engagement based on video production, and there's good news and bad news in it. And I won't read all of these, but shorter is better than longer. Interspersing for lack of a better term, talking head with slides is better than slides alone. It's better than talking heads alone too. Videos with a personal feel are better than more formal kind of thing. So again, that one-on-one, I'm talking to you, I don't necessarily have a prepared script, or it doesn't sound like I have a prepared script. And that's why you don't typically want to get like an actor who can deliver well on camera, because the actor cannot, you know, you give him a script and read it, he can't speak extemporaneously about your subject matter, he can't bring the passion to it that you have. Yeah, if you can do drawing instead of just static PowerPoints, that's better too. We actually have, we use a, well, I'll talk about it, we use a markup program for iPad and Android that lets you mark up your slides, and it produces a video segment out the back end. It's pretty nifty. And then that comes in where you have to edit that together with the talking head. Even when you have very high quality video captured in the kind of setting we're here, where it's a lecture to a group, they just, and you see that in that earlier thing. So that's high quality video on that orange line, captured in a lecture, you know, with a room full of folks. If that's what you have, you should still really put the planning into segmenting well, you know, and not just throw up a 20-minute video or a 40-minute video, that sort of thing. Again, as I said, it's your enthusiasm and your excitement for the topic that works best, so let that show. Even if it makes you a little harder to understand. Even if talking fast sometimes loses your students, or, you know, that enthusiasm is most important, and we have, you know, the ability to slow down the video, the transcripts, all that kind of stuff that are aids to comprehension that can mitigate if you're talking fast and someone whose first language is not the same as yours maybe falls out and isn't able to follow. Any questions on that? Let me go back. Does that all make sense? Is it intuitively what you would think? I've seen a lot of people try to just record lecture hall videos and put them up, and great. No, nobody cares. So what it really helps that you have the media folks here that will help. But you can record this stuff yourself with just a decent video camera. I mean, they're using the digital SLR here. This will produce very nice video. It will probably not produce as good audio as we would like, because it's got an onboard microphone that's over there, and there's all the room noise and stuff like that. So if you're going to use a camera like this, you want to have an HD microphone that would go on the lapel and cut out the noise and stuff like that. You know, a whiteboard video capture app. We've been using something called Explain Everything, which is both inexpensive and easy to use. There's a little bit of learning curve to work it well, but you can use it like you can, you know, use a pen to mark on the screen. You can pinch to zoom in, and just bring a little bit of motion to that stuff. And it also gives it a little bit more immediacy, like you're really talking to the students rather than just doing a prepared thing. You can also, you know, if you want to go higher end, you can get a tablet that connects to your PC to, you know, as an input device. Well, we don't need to talk. That's the same kind of point. For mobile, and that's what I'll mention. One of the things I do with, we specifically got an iPad mini just for hosting the Explain Everything app, and we intentionally did not use a full-size iPad because, I'll say it again, academics, God bless them, never met a PowerPoint screen that couldn't fit one more sentence or one more graphic, or and if you think about it in terms of somebody sitting again looking at it on their iPad or looking at it on a mobile device, slides should be minimalistic. So big text, clear text, not a lot going on. If you need to split it up into multiple slides, why not do that? In terms of production, it's deliberate movement. They're talking on mobile, not lots of fast motion, because low bandwidth and the like, that'll mix it up. Yeah, they recommend 25 point or larger for font size. Sans serif fonts. They have a couple of specific fonts they recommend. But they're talking about mobile, but these are good practices in general. That these make for clearer slides and just better delivery. We don't need to look at that. I don't even understand what that is.
I just want to comment about Camtasia.
Yes.
Also Camtasia Pro. We use that quite a lot. And what I like about that is you can take a video clip, and inside the video clip you can put a small 5-mark assessment, a multiple choice, an MCQ, and if the student gets it wrong, Camtasia can jump back into the video, quickly show that part again until you reach the assessment again. And then it continues the video.
Yeah, I mean, that requires you to deliver it in their format, which is not a, you know, the YouTube format. But yeah, that's, and Camtasia as a tool, you know, if depending on how much of the work you're doing yourself, it's, as a video editing tool, it's very accessible. Very, there's not a steep learning curve. The ability to mix different video feeds. So like if you're editing,
Straightforward.
yeah, if you're editing in your own whiteboard screen with your own video, it's very doable. Being able to make nice smooth transitions between things. It's not terribly expensive.
It's Windows version.
It's available for both Windows and Mac.
Yeah, there's a Mac and PC.
Yeah.
No, the Mac one is different now.
Yeah, the university's got a license for it as well. So it is
Yeah.
available.
I'm the kind of guy, I like to do as much of this myself as I can, at least first time, because that's how I understand how things have to happen and what's possible, by getting my hands on it and really, and then I'm better positioned, even if somebody else is doing it for me next time, I can tell them what I need and and know what's possible and that kind of thing. So, yeah, Camtasia's fun.
But could you address, I mean, so I think edX has alternative ways of doing the same functionality he was just describing, right?
That's correct, yeah.
So if you develop to a certain point and then you want it to branch based on feedback from the student, then instead of using the Camtasia tool directly, right, you drop out of the static video, which is YouTube or whatever, right? edX does the assessment, and then edX does the branching based on the response, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And when you're considering that you're only doing a 3 to 7 minute video,
right?
So you do your 4-minute video, you ask the question, they get it wrong. Here, go back here and watch, and do the same kind of thing, and that also aids. The biggest, biggest barrier to overcome in student engagement here is just keeping them going, keeping them interested. And it seems silly, some of the things we talk about, to keep them engaged, because really, in terms of education, they may not add that much, except that it keeps them doing it. And if they're not doing it, then they're not learning. So things like keeping your videos short, so that they'll watch the whole video. So that even if you have 21 minutes worth of stuff to cover, if you split that up into 3 or 4 videos, even if you did nothing else, you're much more likely to get them to watch all 21 minutes of the video than if you put it up as one segment. Now what helps after that, once you've segmented it into 3 or 4 videos, okay, so you do the first video, and then maybe instead of waiting to the end of the week or the end of the day's lecture or whatever to give them homework or assignments or that sort of thing, the one that applies to this 3 or 4 minutes, do it now. Give them that, if there's a question you want them to answer, there's an assignment you want them to do, instead of waiting to the end of the week or at the end of the whole section, give it to them then. Gives them something else to do right now that isn't just sitting in front of a sitting in front of a computer watching the video. So that's why we see in edX that kind of learning sequence. It's video, it's HTML, it's PDF, it's assessment, it's and the assessment can be as simple as what you were saying. Did you get that? Yes, no. Ask that question, and then they know whether they're ready to move on. But the secondary benefit of that is you want them to click. Clicking means they're still doing something, and that means they're much more likely to go on to the next segment and continue with it. Okay, I battle. Just a typical workflow on media. I won't hit each of these, but you see you do break things down into a fairly large number of steps. I don't want you to forget the transcript, because people tend to. Oh yes, that's an important. So generating it, editing it, and setting things up that way. From there, oh no, we don't want to talk that. We don't want to talk that. Okay, just a quick summary of what we talked about in this segment. So this is a new way of doing things. It's a little, if you've recorded videos before, this is kind of different. And that's why I would like, again, for our sample units that we're going to create tomorrow, if you have the ability tonight to grab a couple of minute video of yourself, and it can be as casual as you want. Webcam video, your mobile phone, whatever, and upload it to edX. Just talk 2 or 3 minutes about something you know something about. And keep in mind the things that we've talked about. You want to show enthusiasm, you're talking to the camera like it's your student or somebody else you're having a conversation with. And we'll kind of, at least some of them we'll try to take a look at tomorrow, although we'll have to figure out if we're going to be able to watch video in here or not. If worse comes to worse, if anybody can bring them on a flash drive, we can put them up and share and talk about style there. It's not a lecture capture. This is one-on-one. Eye contact with the camera lens like they're a person, bringing yourself into the discussion, so personal anecdotes and that sort of thing. High quality audio, and it's a place that we forget sometimes. We get focused on how good the video is. Audio is more important than video, and that's something that people don't realize. Audio is how your students comprehend what you're saying. And so if there's a lot of room noise, like I'm worried about this fan on the audio that comes in here. And that's also why you gotta kind of take samples. You take a video, watch it, put on a pair of headphones and listen real closely. Is there a hum coming on? I cannot record in my office at IEEE because there's too much ventilation sounds and too many electronic pieces around putting out EM interference and that sort of thing. If I'm recording video, I go home, or audio, I go home because the environment's much more controllable there. 3 to 7 minute segments. Shorter is always better. Make them standalone concepts. And part of their summary is do what we said as much as you can. Use best practices as much as whatever possible. All right. So that's what I have on the media stuff. Does that make sense? Questions about it? Is it something you'd feel comfortable doing? Who's uncomfortable in front of a camera? Bless you.
Who's not comfortable?
I'm asking who's uncomfortable, but
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I hate myself afterwards, but other people like it.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Well, and that's why I think I shared with the group a link to the IEEE MOOC users group that I put together, and I've got a couple of videos on there as examples. It's me talking, and one of the things I say in there is that as a presenter, you really have to be as honest with yourself as possible, and ask yourself, am I boring? And if I'm boring, can I? Is there some way I can not be boring? And if you can't not be boring, then you shouldn't be the person in front of the camera, right? I mean, that doesn't mean you're not part of the course team. It doesn't mean you might even be the lead instructor, but maybe you get somebody who's also conversant with the subject matter, who is maybe a little more comfortable on camera, who can speak with authority, but also bring that enthusiasm it's not for everybody. I think most of you, though, because by virtue of the fact that you're instructors, you talk to students all the time, and in some ways it's more a question of getting out of your own head somewhat, and really treating the camera like it's the person you're talking to, and not being self-conscious about, if you stammer a little bit or you flub a word, nobody cares about that, right? just keep talking like you would in a normal conversation. Now, if you get a bigger piece, you just kind of space all together. Well, that's what editing's for. You pause and you take that segment segment again. It's you know, it's a change in mindset, but I think anybody who has the courage to stand up in front of a 100-seat lecture hall and talk about something for an hour has the ability and the confidence to do this. It's just changing your mindset a little bit.
Just don't be a television news reader.
Right.
That's-
Well, and that's why I said, you know, we're not hiring somebody to come in and read your script. This is you. It's your enthusiasm. It's your knowledge of the subject, and turning it into a Hollywood production turns off your students. You know.
I think the more authentic it comes across, the better.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why nobody can do that better than you can. Other questions about video best practices, that sort of thing. We feel good about it? Everybody's going to record something tonight? And all right, how are we doing on time? We're doing okay on time. Let's move to the next segment. Find it. See, we're getting down to the wire. And I know this is an area that some folks in particular were really interested in. This is assessment, problems, that sort of thing, and other advanced components that can be incorporated into edX courses. So different, well, what you use problems for, that fairly obvious. You can have, you know, graded assignments as part of the course. The knowledge checks that we were talking about as part of the learning sequence. You watch a video, you answer a question, you decide whether you're moving on or going on. To practice what we're talking about, and even to do surveys to get information from your students. You can use the problem set for that. Frequent, short assessments really help to create interactive engagement with your students, and gives the students immediate feedback about whether they're understanding or not. Right? You can choose within here, you know, on an assignment by assignment basis or an assessment by assessment basis, how many attempts the students can have to take it. You can make it, you know, unlimited, or if you do it twice and you get it wrong, you have to do something else, or on a graded assignment you have one try. And it's all in your control and up to you. And students don't have, like, even on a quiz or whatever, if you allow it, they can save their work and come back later so they don't lose it and go on. Yeah, so things that you set when you're creating a problem is, you know, a display name, what people see when they go into it. And the name, sometimes a descriptive name is needed for accessibility. So, you know, it says something about what it really is. You set the maximum attempts that students can take on it based on what kind of thing it is. You also choose how much the assignment or how much it's weighted in the overall grade structure. We haven't talked much about grading, but in an edX course, you really decide there's a large number of options for how you grade the course. You can do it on a traditional grading scale. You can do it pass-fail, set where each of those grades are. It's really up to you. And then for assignments, what weight they carry on the over end, whether they can, you know, there's one assignment that can be thrown away or two assignments that can be thrown away. It's all in your control as the instructor as you build the course. It's stuff you have to think about as you're creating it. You can also choose at some point to show the correct answer or not, and at what point that happens. Okay.
Is there a time delay between attempts?
You know, I'm not sure.
Because we, specifically in South Africa, because of the electricity, the load shedding problem for the next 2 years they're predicting, those of the people using Blackboard had asked just for a 15-minute delay between attempts, so that if there's a power failure that were unannounced, the students can just continue during an assessment. after 15 minutes plus the time that the electricity was off.
So are you, let me understand, so are we talking about like if you have a timed assignment that has to be done
In a specific time, only self is a failure. How are those marks recorded?
Yeah, I believe if they have to, there is a save button that they click, definitely save, without submitting. I think it saves as if they're going from page to page.
Yeah, but it keeps until the student has answered the final answer and says save and submit. So then it keeps in a turnaround time until that data is sent through. So the moment the student has saved and submitted the final question, then the answers are sent through. The feedback
Yes.
it can give immediately, but the recording of the actual statistics, that's
Yeah, that's how it works. So until the student actually submits, it's not recorded. It's saved in the student's course, not in the course.
So our problem is if there's a power failure in the middle of an assessment,
Yeah.
like a test for instance, those marks are kept in a temporary system, but when the electricity comes back on, there's that time a delay plus 15 minutes and the student is able to continue with the test.
Yeah, yeah. Well, of course, in this case, everything is stored on the servers, the edX servers, which are around the world. So a power loss here doesn't affect what they have at all. It's still, as long as they have at least saved at some point by submitting.
So they can
Now,
continue.
yeah, and typically you're not having an assignment that everybody is doing at the same time. You have a due date for it. You have a date and time when it's available, and a date and time after which it's no longer available. So long as it's completed in that window, they're fine. You as an instructor, if you decide something happened that means you need to extend the deadline, you can go in and extend the deadline.
Or do more attempts.
Right.
Allow more attempts.
Yeah, you can reset any of that as well. Yeah. Okay, so problems are created in Studio, and there are two different ways to do it. There's the visual editor is really, for the most common types of problems and things that are simple, and we'll talk about some examples of that as well. And then there's an advanced editor that it uses XML to get a little bit more detailed and more complex. Every problem type, if you go in and say I'm creating a problem and this is the type, it gives you within the Studio an example of that. So at some level you can just replace the text and put it back in, but it shows you, by looking at how it was done, you know how it's done, so you go forward there. Yeah, so people hear XML, they think, no, you don't have to, you can do it without any XML at all. It's if you can also use Python for creating stuff, but again, if you don't know anything about Python, you don't have to do anything with Python. For those, people who know XML and can work in it, they can sometimes bring their vision more closely to it, but again, you can do great stuff without touching XML at all. One of the problems with using XML is if you break it, you break it. So this is an example, for instance, of a problem done in XML where I think it's missing a bracket. So you as the instructor, you'll or whoever is working in Studio will see this detailed description of what the error is. What students will see is just an error message, and I think, yeah, edX always takes the blame. We're sorry this module is temporarily unavailable. Our staff is working to fix it, so it's good. edX takes the blame. That's fine. But you will hear about it. Students will post to it on the forums pretty quickly. You don't want too many broken things floating around. Again, so going back to the question of accessibility, you want to be as descriptive about what remember that one of the things we're looking for here is the ability for screen readers to read aloud to students when they need it. So using a name that goes beyond, you know, question is helpful. You know, tie it to what lesson you're learning, or you know that kind of thing. So place it into a little bit of context. It also helps with the grade distribution reports. Yeah, so this is just an example. This is showing both in Studio and on the upper left, and actually in the LMS, a multi-question problem. So so they're kind of graded together. And edX likes to talk about edX. So here, what was the first course to run from edX? It was Anand Agarwal's Introduction to Computer Science, which I think. Wait, no, that's not Anand. This, oh yeah, the circuits and that's one of the choices. Sorry. All right, well great, then, and thank you all for great participation today. I look forward to seeing what everybody does tomorrow. And we have, beyond the lab session we have some great presentations on learning theory and in the areas of MOOC. Are you rising to address the group? Or no, you're not, okay. Because we're going to hear from Matt among other people.
I thought you were going to point at me.
No. I mean, I guess that's it for tonight. We'll look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow morning. If you need anything tonight on this, just send me an email if you're having problems accessing. We want to make things as smooth as possible for you tomorrow so we don't have to mess around too much.
Before we go, I also want to thank you, Steve. I think this has been exciting. I also want to thank the audiences for listening for the whole day. There is one important thing that we have to do before we leave.
That's right.
Taking a group photo.
I was letting everybody go.
And I was thinking that probably the group photo could be nice if it is taken at the stairs there. Can we go at the stairs there and then we are taking a group photo before we leave?
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.